If you are a regular listener, you know the score. This game-changing podcast will put your English in a league of its own. Let's kick this episode off. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, I'm Craig.
And I'm Reza.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, Reza and I are going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Reza?
I'm feeling fine, Craig. I'm ready to go. I'm raring to go. I'm keen to record a podcast as ever. And you?
I'm the same. We're ready to kick off. If you notice, we used 3 football expressions in the introduction, and that's the main topic of this week's podcast. And the idea comes from Paulina from Wanaka, New Zealand. Regular listeners may remember that Paulina sent us an email and she plays indoor futsal, which I later learned is football sala, indoors. And she asked us to speak about football and football vocabulary. Reza, what did Paulina say in her email?
She wrote the following: I would like you to help me with the vocabulary because sometimes I do not understand when I ask for the ball or they tell me what to do.
So that was Paulina's request, which appeared in episode 322, inglespodcast.com/322. And we also received a voice message from another football fan. That's Jose Ignacio from Argentina.
Hi Reza and Craig, this is Jose Ignacio from Argentina. Okay, as you know, Argentina is well known because football, and when we travel around the world, one of the first things that people say to us is Argentina, Messi, or Argentina, Maradona. And of course, I love it because I like football too. And last episode, I heard you are going to record a new podcast about football. And I was very happy to hear it because I love football and I have learned some English through football. For instance, following the English football, not only the Premier League, but also the Championship. The Championship is the second league in Britain, and I have become a quasi-new Leeds United supporter because the Leeds United manager is also an Argentinian called Marcelo Bielsa. Fortunately, Marcelo was able to lead the team to be champions. They won the championship, and Leeds United has promoted to Premier League after 16 years thanks to Marcelo.
Thank you very much, Jose Ignacio, and congratulations to Leeds United for being promoted. Well done. Any comments, Reza?
Yes, congratulations. Well done. I'm glad that Leeds United have been restored to their former glory. That means they used to be very good, and then for years they weren't. But now they've got back into the top position. That's good. Because when I was a kid growing up, Leeds United were regarded as one of the best teams in England.
Yeah, they were. They were a fantastic team. And it looks like now they're back on top again. One small mistake you made, Jose Ignacio, you said Leeds has promoted to Premier League. It needs to be in the passive because Leeds did not promote themselves. They were promoted. So it's better to say Leeds has been promoted to the Premier League. Has been promoted.
Another thing you said, which was a little grammar mistake, I can't remember the full sentence, but you said, I have became, when you should have said, I have become, because present perfect is have plus the past participle. And the verb is to become, infinitive, became, past simple, but become, past participle. So I think you said maybe I have become a Leeds supporter. I think that's what you said. I have, or what you should have said. I have become a Leeds supporter, not became. I have become.
And one final correction Jose Ignacio, you need to change your team from Leeds to Arsenal, which is by far the best team in the English Football League.
This is Craig's opinion. His opinion. And they are a very good team at the minute. So Craig is a Leeds. Sorry.
Ooh.
What have I said?
Wash your mouth
Edit
out
this.
with
Edit this.
soap.
That was a slip of the tongue. Craig is not a Leeds supporter.
I beg your pardon.
He is an Arsenal supporter, clearly. Jose Ignacio, the best team in England does begin with the letter L, but you got the wrong city. It's Liverpool. Liverpool are the best team, in my opinion, in England. So
we will have to agree to disagree. We're going to look at some verbs and some vocabulary connected to football, which we hope will help Paulina next time she's playing, that she knows what to say, how to speak about football. Most importantly, if you're playing football, what do you shout? What do you shout during the game so that everyone can understand and communicate properly on the football field, on the football pitch? So we'll look at some vocabulary, starting with verbs, some strong collocations, and possible confusion because there's a difference, isn't there, Reza, between to win and to beat? And the differences are mainly collocations. Which words go with win? Which words go with beat?
Yes, here translating into Spanish is not going to help you at all, because to win is ganar and to beat is ganar, but they're different in English. To win a match, win a game, win a competition, win the league, win a trophy, etc. You win, it's either a competition or a part of a competition or a prize for a competition. But you beat an opponent, or it could be a team, or maybe even a record. That's kind of logical, because if you think about it, if you beat a record, you've beaten something of another team or of an opponent. So beat a team, an opponent, a record. For example, England beat Spain in the last 5 minutes. So the opponents of England were Spain, and they won the championship. So what they won, that ganar is win, but the opposition is to beat. So it's complicated. You've got to think about it in English.
Do you know the opposite of to win a match or to win a game? You probably do. It's to lose. So you can lose a game, lose a competition, lose a match. And if the score is the same on both sides, the verb is to draw. D-R-A-W. If it's 1-1 or 2-2 or 3-3, you draw the game or you draw the match. If the score is 0-0, we say nil. So nil-nil. It's a nil-nil draw, N-I-L. For example, Arsenal drew with Barcelona last week. Draw is an irregular verb, so the past of draw is drew, D-R-E-W.
Yes, that word nil that Craig mentioned is interesting because it's only for a few sports, football being one of them, but in an everyday conversation which is not about sport, you would say 0, but you always say nil in football. You play against a team, the preposition against. Or actually, you can have no preposition. So you could say Arsenal played against Barcelona, or Arsenal played Barcelona. It's probably more correct with a preposition, but sometimes people drop the word against. So play against a team, play behind closed doors. Now, this is an expression which wasn't that useful until coronavirus appeared.
Now it's very common.
And now virtually all games in the last few months have been played behind closed doors. That means there's no spectators. They're not allowed to open the doors to the public. So they've had the match in the stadium because that's where the pitch is, the grass where they play, but behind closed doors with no spectators, the people who watch the match.
And notice that the name for people who watch a football match is spectators, not audience. So you get an audience in the cinema, an audience in the theatre, a pop concert, but for sports they are spectators. Spectators. It's easy for me to say. They are spectators.
The next verb we have is a verb with many meanings in English, but here we're just talking about football, right? So to shoot means to try to make the ball go into the net. La net, la red. So if you try to make the ball go in there, you're shooting. But remember, there's many other meanings of shooting. To shoot a gun, with a bullet. To shoot a film. There are many uses of shoot. And in football, it means try to make the ball go into the net.
If you kick another player and not the ball on purpose, that's called a foul. F-O-U-L. That's the noun. And it's also a verb, to foul someone. If you're looking for a collocation with the noun, you can say to commit a foul. So the player committed a foul. And if you commit a foul, the other team often get a free kick. A free kick, which means you put the ball on the same spot, the same place where the foul happened, and then you can kick the ball anywhere. So if you foul someone, then the other team gets a free kick.
To kick is to use your foot to hit a ball. We nearly forgot to mention the most important aspect of football. K-I-C-K, to kick means to use your foot to hit something, in this case, a ball. Of course, you could also head the ball. Don't worry, very easy. To head is the verb, and it is related to the noun a head. When you use your head to move the ball, that is simply to head the ball. But if someone commits a foul, as Craig said, you get a free kick. You never get a free head, eh? You only ever get a free kick.
And as Reza said before, to shoot is to try to get the ball in the back of the net. The noun is shot, so you can take a shot. And if you're successful, if the ball does go into the net, you have scored. So the verb to score a goal. And it's very common to hear the expression back of the net said very quickly. Back of the net, which means that a goal has been scored.
However, if your attempt to score a goal is not successful, it could be because the player defending the net, the goalkeeper, has saved. He's saved the goal. That means he's prevented the goal from happening. So he saved the goal. Or you can also say he has made a save. To save or to make a save is what the goalkeeper does.
When you're playing football, you want to try to keep the ball in possession so that your team has the ball. But what happens if the other team has the ball? Well, you go to the player who has the ball and you try to get the ball from him or from her. And that's called to tackle. T-A-C-K-L-E. So to tackle a player is to go to that player to try to get the ball, to get back possession.
Another important skill in football, apart from tackling, shooting, heading the ball, is to dribble. D-R-I-B-B-L-E, to dribble.
I do that every night when I'm sleeping.
Me too.
From my mouth.
All right. That's the other meaning of dribble. So there is a more common meaning of dribble, which is when saliva, when liquid, accidentally runs out of your mouth. So at night, when you're not controlling your mouth, it may open, the saliva slowly comes out. That's to dribble. But obviously in football, that's not a skill that people try to acquire. The skill of dribbling in football is whenever you can keep possession of the ball, an individual keep possession of the ball and move it around and make sure that the players from the other team don't tackle him. If he can avoid being tackled, then he's dribbling very well.
And we mentioned the verb to foul, to commit a foul, hacer una falta. Well, if the referee decides that you have committed a foul and you fouled another player, you might get booked, B-O-O-K-E-D. The expression to be booked means that the referee blows the whistle and writes your name in his book. So that's where the expression comes from, to be booked. So a player can get booked. Another expression for this is to be shown a yellow card or to be shown a red card. So the referee shows you the card and you have committed a foul or you are sent off. If you're sent off the pitch or the field, the football field, then you've been shown the red card. So that phrasal verb to be sent off by the referee.
Yes, I've just thought, I don't know if they still do it, but I guess the original reasoning behind saying to book someone was that the referee wrote your name in the book.
In a book.
As a caution. And then whenever you commit a foul, he checks the book to see if your number's already there. So let's see, Arsenal, number 7. Oh, we got him already. That means now it's the red card. So he consulted the book because he might have forgot in the meantime. Imagine there's been a lot of fouls. Imagine it's been a very dirty game. We say a dirty game, sucio. There's a lot of fouls, a lot of bad, unpleasant things. So he might have forgotten who he's booked. So he needs to look at the book. He sees your number. Okay, so now you're off. Now it's the red card.
Do you remember games of football in the days before the red and yellow cards? I think...
I don't. No.
I think I can remember a time when they only used the book. The referee had the book, and then they started using red and yellow cards for international games. I may be wrong, but that's maybe when I was very, very young. I remember that.
Oh, wow. That's going back a long time.
A long time, yeah. A long, long time.
There may be another reason why a player has to leave the pitch, apart from being sent off with a red card. Maybe he's injured. Or maybe he's just not playing very well. And the manager wants to take him off. So if you're taken off or pulled off, is another expression, that means that you have been substituted. Your team has made a substitution. You are not playing well. They have taken you off. They've pulled you off. Or it could be because you're injured.
And if you are a substitute, if you're waiting to play, then you're probably sitting on the bench. B-E-N-C-H. Of course, you get benches in parks, el banco, but next to the football field, there's a bench, and that's where the substitute and the managers and the trainers sit. So if you're on the bench, you're a substitute.
So far, we've been concentrating on verbs or verb phrases, expressions with verbs. But let's look at some other useful areas. The word goal, you probably know because it's very similar to Spanish. In English, it's spelled G-O-A-L, but it's actually quite a complicated word because it can have several meanings and several uses. Obviously, when you score, you put the ball in the back of the net, you got a point. That is a goal. You've scored a goal. But another use of goal is to talk about the area where the net is. So the goal mouth or the goal area is the area near the line where the ball has to cross to be considered a goal, a point. So that area is sometimes just called the goal area or the goal mouth. And the actual line itself that the ball must pass is the goal line.
And there's an area in front of the goal that is called the 6-yard box, and that's the area right in front of the goal. In fact, when the goalkeeper kicks the ball into play, that's called a goal kick, and he puts the ball on that line of the 6-yard box. And just outside of that, there's the penalty spot where you take penalties from.
Yes, it's confusing, isn't it? You might think, oh, it couldn't be that complicated, this football vocabulary, but it is. You probably thought, oh, goal kick means a goal. No, it's not, as Craig just said. It's when the goalkeeper kicks the ball. Don't confuse a goal with a goal kick.
If you get awarded a penalty, then that is because a foul has been committed inside the penalty area. Maybe a foul on another player, or maybe a handball where the team has touched the ball with their hands, and the penalty area is that 18-yard box in front of the goal.
Another important part of the pitch is in the middle, the center circle, and also the center spot. So the center spot is where the ball is placed at the beginning of each half, of the first half and the second half of the game. And the spot is within a center circle. So obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, maybe you don't know the rules of football. Whenever they kick off, whenever the game starts, all of the players except two must be outside the center circle, and the ball is placed on the center spot, and then the match begins.
In the centre of the football pitch, maybe unsurprisingly, we have the halfway line. And of course, the lines on the side of the pitch are called the sidelines. There are referees who have to walk up and down, or sometimes run up and down the sidelines, so that they can help the referee decide when the ball goes outside of play, and they're called the linesmen or the lineswomen.
Another important job of those linesmen or women is often to identify offside. Sometimes the referee spots it, but sometimes the referee doesn't see it, so the linesman informs the referee that there's been offside, fuera de juego.
Sometimes it's difficult to know exactly what happens in a game of football, but if you watch an action replay, then you can see the game again, sometimes in slow motion. So that's very useful to notice fouls and offsides, an action replay. And if there's a really good goal, then you see an action replay when you're filming and videoing a game. But that expression action replay can be used for many things, not only football.
Quite often in a match, they have to stop a lot because there's a lot of injuries. If that happens, the referee may decide to add injury time. So that's the time added because a lot of time has been wasted taking people on and off because they're injured, or stopping play to make sure they're all right. There's another type of time added, which we call extra time. Is it the same as injury time, Craig?
No, extra time, if it's an important game, let's say it's a cup final and it's really important to know who's won. Well, what happens if you get to the end of 90 minutes, the end of the game, and it's a draw? It's 1-1, for example. Well, then you play extra time. I think it's half an hour, 30 minutes, to decide who's won. And if nobody wins after extra time, then it goes to penalties and the teams take penalties.
Now, we don't want to go into huge detail because we haven't got time, and also it would bore some people who are not particularly interested in football, but we'll just mention a couple of the key positions of the players in a match. Obviously, to get a goal, you need a good striker or an attacker. So a striker, particularly, is the footballer who tries to strike the ball into the net. An attacker, a striker. The opposite of that would be a defender. So the person who stays near the goal mouth or near the back of his team, preventing the strikers from getting a goal, apart from, of course, the goalkeeper, el portero. Can you think of any other positions, Craig?
Yes, a player who plays in the middle of the field is called a midfielder. One word, midfielder. And the attackers who are on the left and right on the outsides are the wingers. If you imagine the wing of an aeroplane on the extreme edge of the field. So they go very wide when they're playing. They're the wingers. And a defender would be a full back. At the back of the field defending their goal. Remember, all of these words, the vocabulary, everything is available in the show notes, and you can find the show notes to this episode at inglespodcast.com/330. So if you are a footballer, if you play football like Paulina does, then you're going to need this vocabulary that we're going to give you now, because these are the kind of words that you might shout during a game of football when you're actually playing, when you're on the pitch playing the game. Now, when you're playing, then you want to pass the ball to your teammate or you want your teammate to pass the ball to you. Now, you're not going to shout, "Hey, Paulina, please pass me the ball," because everything's moving very quickly, everything's going very fast. So you'd use the imperative of some verbs. Reza, what kind of imperatives could they use while they're playing?
So imperatives in English means there's no subject. So you would simply say, pass, or cross the ball, or give it to me, something like that. Maybe even not the ball, just pass. Depending on how much time you've got and how excited you are. The most important thing is to get your message across with as few words as possible. So pass, or pass the ball.
I used to play with a guy years ago who shouted "give." He just shouted "give." Like, he'd run forward, he'd see a space, and he'd say, "Craig, give." So you'd say the name of the person maybe, and then just pass or give, or yes. Just say yes, yes, because you're open and you want the ball. Another thing that could happen in the game is that you have a penalty, or maybe the ball goes out of play, which means you need to throw in the ball or take a throw in. Or if it goes out of play on the goal line, it's a corner. So maybe someone in the team needs to take a corner, take a throw in, or take a penalty. So you might say to someone, "Hey, you take it. You take this." So you take it means you do it. In a similar way, instead of saying "it's yours" or "it's your ball" or "it's mine," you just use yours. As the ball comes, you say yours, which gives your teammate permission to take possession of the ball. Or mine means leave it for me. I'll take possession of the ball.
Another useful expression to say to a teammate could be drop back. There could be a couple of reasons for that. Most obviously to avoid offside, particularly if a striker or a forward is too far forward. If they're going to get in front of the last line of defense of the other team and you pass the ball to them, they'll be offside. So you might ask them to drop back.
And the opposite of dropping back to defend is pushing forward. So you could shout to your teammates, "Push forward, attack, push forward." Or you could say "go wide," which means go to the outsides, to the sidelines of the pitch to open up the game, give more space. Point to someone and say, "Hey, Reza, go wide, push forward, drop back." All those commands help your teammates to position themselves on the pitch.
If you see that there's a good chance of getting a goal, you could say to your teammate who has the ball, "shoot." You might see a space, or the goalkeeper is not paying attention, or simply you're going to run out of time and you really need the goal. That's a good time to say "shoot."
If you see a foul, you say "foul, foul ref." Just shout out the word "foul."
What's a ref?
Ref is, I'm pleased you asked that, ref is short for referee. So, "Hey ref, that was a foul." So you'd use ref as a colloquial expression for referee. There are other names you could call a referee, but we won't go into them on this podcast because we don't want to offend any referees listening.
Yes, they get enough abuse as it is
on
already.
The pitch. Yeah.
Another expression you might hear is "man on." Now, I see the problem with this. It's already going to look a bit sexist because I presume Paulina is not a man. But do people say "woman on"? I guess they do.
I've never played on a woman's team, so I have no idea. You'd have to ask your teammates, Paulina, what they shout in a female game. But when I used to play, if an opposing player was very close, maybe I couldn't see him, someone would shout "man on," which means an opposing player from the other team is very, very close trying to tackle me. So it's giving warning to your teammate that there's a player very near you. So be careful, "man on." And when you are keeping very close to another player so that that player cannot receive the ball, take possession of the ball, that's called marking, M-A-R-K. To mark another player means to stay very close to that player and stop them receiving the ball. So you may say to your teammate, "stay on him, stay on her," which means keep marking that person, keep close to that person. You could also hear "keep on him, stay on her."
Other useful expressions are clear it, or boot it. Now, the boot, the football boot, is what you wear on your foot, of course. But the verb to boot it, is just to kick the ball with a lot of energy, just to kind of get rid of it. So it's usually for when you're defending and there's a risk that the other team are going to score a goal. It's a dangerous situation. Someone might say to you, if you've got the ball, boot it. Means just get rid of it quick, clear it.
So Reza said before that offside means fuera de juego, and that's something you could shout if the opposing team, if you think it's offside, put your hand up, say, hey ref, offside. Offside, so you are appealing for the free kick.
Now, apart from the actual practical applications of football expressions, we use some as idioms. So just to remind you, an idiom is when you use words for a meaning that isn't their normal meaning. For example, to get the ball rolling. That could mean that I have a ball and I roll it so it moves along the ground. But it usually doesn't mean that in most conversations. To get the ball rolling is often used as an idiomatic expression, which simply means to start something, to get the ball rolling, or to kick off, as Craig said at the beginning of the podcast, because the first kick of the ball is the kick off in football. So to start anything is to kick off.
If you are on the ball, you really know what's happening. You're really aware of the situation. So if Reza's on the ball, then he knows a lot about flags, for example. When it comes to flags, I could say Reza's really on the ball. He knows his stuff. He's very knowledgeable.
Now, to move the goalposts, that doesn't actually happen in a game, I know. Can you imagine if it did? Imagine you're about to shoot and the goalposts, the net is moved. Well, it's going to be pretty hard to score, isn't it? So when they move the goalpost, it's to change the conditions, change the criteria. So you were about to do something, but they've now changed the rules, the criteria, so that you can't do what you'd planned to do.
If you keep your eye on the ball, then it's important to pay attention to things. So you're very aware of what's happening. Reza's keeping his eye on the ball when it comes to his application for the language school, for example. He's making sure that he knows all the details and he doesn't forget anything. So he has his eye on the ball, or he keeps his eye on the ball.
To know the score is similar to be on the ball. If you know the score, you know what's happening. You understand the situation. You're on the ball if you know the score.
And to blow the whistle on someone is to tell people what someone or some people have done. For example, Edward Snowden blew the whistle on the United States Secret Service and on information gathering by the government. The noun is a whistleblower. So you could say that Edward Snowden is a whistleblower. He's told state secrets.
Some teams are really, really good worldwide. For example, Real Madrid, everybody knows they've won loads of Champions Leagues. You could say almost they're in a league of their own. Nobody can really be compared to them. They're so good. Yeah. If I was to compare my local team from Belfast to Real Madrid, it's just silly because Real Madrid are out of their league. The local Belfast team can't be compared to Real Madrid because Real Madrid are out of their league. So if someone is in a league of their own or they're out of your league, they're far, far, far better than anything else. You can't compare anything else to them.
Let's look at some slang now, some words that we use from football that's colloquial. Let's imagine, for example, the game has finished. You've played the game and you lost 3-1. You could say, we were robbed. We were absolutely robbed. Now, to rob, not physically, nobody stole money from you, but you could feel that somebody robbed the game from you. So imagine you had 80% of possession and you missed a penalty or you were very unlucky. You could say, we should have won, but we were robbed.
Or it could also be, it's also very common whenever you feel that the referees made a lot of bad decisions, that you felt that you should have had 3 or 4 penalties, the referee didn't award them, you lose the game, 1-0, you say, we were robbed. It should have been 4-1 to us, we were robbed.
You could shout this next expression from the sidelines if you're a spectator, or from the pitch if you're playing. Get stuck in. Get stuck in, which means go and tackle, get really maybe physical, get involved in the game, put more energy, more enthusiasm into the game to get stuck into something. Of course, you can also get stuck into a project or work or something, but it's very common when you're playing competitively to say to your opponents or to your team, come on guys, come on girls, get stuck in.
To hit the woodwork might be a new expression for many of you. Woodwork, something made out of wood. Well, they're talking about the goal posts. Or it could be the bar. The bar is the horizontal part which joins the 2 goal posts. So if it hits either the posts or the bar, you could say it's hit the woodwork. Are they still made out of wood these days?
I don't think they are, but the expression still works, doesn't it? You hear that very often by football commentators. Oh, good shot, and Razors hit the woodwork. It didn't go in, it didn't score a goal. And we mentioned goalkeeper before, the person who is protecting the goal and stopping the opponents from scoring. You may hear the expression goalie, G-O-A-L-I-E. That's a slang word for a goalkeeper. Like, I want to be goalie this game, or the goalie played really well, for example. So goalie is a goalkeeper.
And in my opinion, by far the most important player on the team. For me, I've always thought the goalies are the most important players. If you got a bad goalie, you're in trouble. Doesn't matter how good your strikers are, you got a bad goalie, big problems for your team.
Well, we hope this has been useful for you football fans out there. I want to recommend one website for you. It's called Premier Skills English, and it's teaching English using football. It's a very good site. You'll learn a lot if you go there. We don't personally know the people who run the site, although it seems to be connected to the British Council. But if you are a football fan, if football is your passion, and maybe you have not heard of that resource, there is a link in the show notes to Premier Skills English. And again, the show notes can be found at inglespodcast.com/330 or 330, maybe I should say. And now that you've listened to us and learned some football vocabulary, we would like to listen to you. Why don't you go and record a sentence or 2 or 3 or 4 and send us a voice message using our SpeakPipe service. That's SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/Inglespodcast. Reza, how can people contact us by email?
You could write, you've got Craig at inglespodcast.com. or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
So why don't you go ahead and shoot us an email? You can also visit the Mansion Inglés online store if you're looking for a paid course to help you with your English. That's at store.mansioningles.net.
As always, thanks to all of you who help us by supporting this podcast through the Patreon scheme. They're people who donate money to us. For doing that, they get access to recent audio transcriptions of all the words. The minimum donation is $1.21. The 21 cents is to cover tax. If you're interested, check it out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Inglespodcast.
We'd like to say hello to our new Patreon supporters who have recently joined us and say a big welcome to them. They are Gerardo Manuel, thank you, Avariño, thank you very much, and Felipe Coelho, thank you to you. Again, to join those Patreon supporters, it's patreon.com/Inglespodcast. What's next week, Reza?
Next week we've got a history of phrasal verbs.
all you phrasal verb fans out there, join us next week for that. Until then, thank you for listening. It's goodbye from me.
And it's bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.